Hello, everybody. It's 10:23 p.m. Central Time on the 2nd of April, 2023. And we are here on the Earthquake 3D live stream, in case you don't know where you're at, but got some breaking news for you. A second large earthquake has struck today. Now, if you're not aware, earlier today, while we were down, a 7.0 earthquake struck, but now that's been followed up by a new 6.5 to 6.6, now currently up there at the top of the screen, rolling by out of Kamchatka, Russia. Let's get a display capture turned on so you can see what I see ever so slightly better, and we'll zoom in on the current earthquake, which is large in its own right. Now, this earthquake struck on the plate boundary. We'll get the USGS plate boundary map open so you can see the spot which is moved up here where the red earthquake is. Again, it's a large earthquake. We'll go click on the info from the USGS, tsunami warnings and so forth, see what's issued. They do have the earthquake listed, but there's no warning, watch, advisory, or threat. They just have info statements, maybe some waves around the area locally up there in Russia. So, big earthquake up there near 7.0, mid-range 6. It actually came in at 6.7. We'll see if they take that up or down, but that's the second large earthquake of the day. The other quake struck at 1800 hours, well, yesterday, about 9 hours ago. And again, like I said, while our internet was down here in Missouri. But let's go get the info on that as well and see what they did with this, because on this earthquake, I would think that there might be some kind of wave activity, but they don't even have it on here from earlier today. So even though they've got the wave warning on the page, it looks like there was no tsunami warning issued again when I click on it. But looks can be deceiving on this because they remove things. Anyway, we'll go get the coordinates on this, and I also want to show you where this hit. This hit on the plate boundary down to the south at the Indo-Australian plate boundary at Papua New Guinea. So, recapping, a 7 struck earlier today at Papua New Guinea, followed in the past few minutes by a new 6.5 to 6.6 earthquake up to the north. And it looks like they just brought it both in at 6.5, mid-range 6. So they're within a half magnitude of each other on the same day, about 12 hours apart or less, 10 hours apart. And we're on the west and northwest side of the Pacific Plate as a whole, I'd call this, even though this is on the plate boundary for Indo-Australia. Down here to the south where the 7 is, up to the north, we're at the northwest side. So really it's the western side of the Pacific Plate which is moving on a 6.5 to 7.0 basis in the past few hours. Now what's causing that is a disturbance from down below. We have deep earthquakes which are raised high off the globe. We can see those easily raised high off the globe here. And we have letter D's where we look for new deep earthquakes to take place. It's forecast area point there. Over to the west, same thing. 2 letter D's here, they're kind of hard to see, nestled in there in between all of our earthquake activity. That's where our deep earthquakes are, deep 5s and 4s. Now notice the big 7 is sandwiched neatly in the middle in between our 2 sets of deep quakes on either side. Now think of these like lifting up on the underside of the plate on either side of the 7 in the middle. And looking at the Indo-Australian plate boundary here, think of it like deep quakes over here on the right-hand side or eastern side, deep quakes over here on the left-hand side or western side, and in the middle, we get a break as the lifting action and the wave is coming up through the plate. The wave I'm talking about is a very low frequency wave. It spreads out and follows the plate boundaries out and away, up, out, and away from where the lifting action or compression action that's coming in on the underside of the plate takes place. So first deep quakes, then shallower, larger quakes, and then a spread. And that's exactly what's happened today. The whitish colored earthquake struck today, pinkish yesterday. Pinkish are the middle points between the white colored earthquakes today. That's a standing wave. It'll move where the peak comes up and then moves equally out and then comes up again, and then the middle point is filled in between the waves, if you know how a standing wave works. Now, we're not done yet. These are the 2 large earthquakes of the day. And again, we're moving pretty significant with this one just in the past few minutes and this one earlier today. 2 near 7, well, 7 and a near 7 up to the north. I would tell all my viewers we've got a warning going from Anchorage down south to the plate boundary. We also have a warning going on the west coast, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Over to the west we go, out of the West Pacific over into Asia, where all this took place yesterday. Now today, over to the west, started to see a new outbreak of fours going across Turkey. 3 sets of fours in 3 different spots, 400 or 500 miles apart each. Well, at least one of the spots is 500 miles apart. The other is like 2.5 to 3. But I would just call that north central Turkey, eastern central Turkey, and south central Turkey all moved on a 4.0 basis today. So what caused it? The flow that I talked about in my update yesterday, which we can still see on the screen here now, marked in a pinkish color. All these mid-range to low-end fours pointing like an arrow over to the west. Iran also got hit yesterday going into today. 2 different earthquakes on the plate boundary in Iran. But over to the west, our warned area in Greece was not hit. No large earthquake in this area. The warning is now canceled as of noon today. About 10 hours ago, the warning is canceled. 10 days warning. Nothing. We got hit nowhere near what we were looking for. I think the highest we went was 5.0 or 4.8 at the Ionian Sea. I mean, the Ionian Sea did get hit, but it was a 5 instead of a 6.9. That's 100 times less power than I was expecting. I don't have an answer for you on it yet. I'm not going to be issuing any new warnings for the region here until I figure out why it didn't hit. Probably the same reason why it didn't hit here in Turkey. You remember what happened in Turkey, right? I issued the warning for Turkey, and what happened? Tajikistan got hit. Back behind it. By the same sized earthquake we were looking for, but that was a miss for me. So here we are again. Next round did not progress out of Turkey like I expected. We're still stuck here in Turkey, and you can see where we're stuck here in Turkey. All the rings are overlapping again today on central Turkey. From Istanbul east, where all the rings overlap. Now what's going on here is the wave is trapped in here still. It's spreading out across Turkey. It's trying to go across all of Europe, but did not break out in front like expected. 10 days. So today is the start of day 11. Now I'll give it a day or two, and if the earthquake hits tomorrow, that's the earthquake in Greece. That's the earthquake we're looking for. But I don't give myself a pat on the back or take it as a credit or even a good earthquake forecast if I get it beyond a day or two wrong. Just so you know, in case you're new here. So, all right. Getting back to where we started. 2 large earthquakes. Deep earthquakes down below. Now, there was a small earthquake worth mentioning down here in Australia. And I don't normally look up all the small earthquakes down in Australia, but this one is right over in a spot where I think we should just point out, whenever you're moving down to the east by southeast in Australia, down by Kangaroo Island and down by Melbourne, when you also move down to the southwest, down by Perth. I've been talking about that in all my updates for God knows how long. Well, now we're going to go down and you're going to see we're in a slightly different spot, but a spot we talked about when I did my live interview with Bernie. We had people from Australia on talking and so forth, but down here we're just east of Uluru, Ayers Rock, the famous rock formation they show in all the movies, and tourists go down here to go see this thing. It's jutting up feature coming up out of the surface, and there's not just one, that's the famous one, but there are others over to the west that I think few people even know about. And they go even further over to the west into the south. These are jutting up features that come up out of the plate. But it's in the middle of the plate. It's where 3 cratons come together in the middle of Australia. You can see 2 of them. One of them has a pathway that comes in from the northwest. In from the northwest. You hear me? In from the northwest. Look at our arrow up here to the northwest. And what's going on up here to the north? Boom. That's where all of our earthquake activity goes right out into Indonesia's plate boundary. So what happened? You moved first with a near 5 down here at Kangaroo Island. Then you got 3.0 level activity over to the east. Then you got 2.0 level activity over to the west. Then you got another round of 3s last night over to the east, over by Sydney. Then in the middle, next to Uluru. And we expect this. The only thing missing now is a new 4 over here at Perth, and I brought that up in my update yesterday. Looks like I missed it. It struck down south of Perth. I was looking here, and it hit here on the plate boundary. Let me show you on the USGS map what I'm talking about. So the line of earthquakes goes north of Australia. We have a red line that comes in from the northwest. We broke down at Melbourne, Kangaroo Island, then 3s over on the east side, then 2s on the west side, then 3s on the east side, then we broke in the middle. Meanwhile, I'm looking for a 4 over here, and it broke down here. But clearly, we're moving all the way around the outside edge, across and through the middle. What's moving? A wave. A wave is passing through Australia, but it's sticking to the plate boundary for the most part with all of our big movement and the deep earthquakes from down below. Anything else worth mentioning? I guess, this is... People in Indonesia are earthquake aware. Everybody there is aware of earthquakes. 4.9 to 5.0 earthquake out on the plate boundary, 100 miles out in the ocean or off one of the barrier islands there. It is a large earthquake. We would consider that large if it hit here in the United States. In Missouri or in California, everybody would make the news or something. But there, they don't really concern themselves too hard with 4.9s to 5s. All that does is fill in the middle points between Asia and back over here where our big cluster is. This is roughly the halfway point between here and here if we go around the bend of the plate. And what's that bend of the plate? One more time. That's the Indo-Australian plate boundary. And we have one set of quakes right in the middle, in between our quakes up in China from yesterday and our quakes back over here, over to the east. That middle point, one more time, middle point, standing wave. Wave comes up. So we have a 5.0 wave spreading out across Indonesia now. So people are probably wondering what's going to happen next. We're all looking at this, and you see a big earthquake here sandwiched in the middle in between both sets of deep quakes. We're going to see a new spread take place, equal to 6.5, already taking place, spreading up to Kamchatka. I'm going to have to issue a warning now for China. So let me show you why we're going to warn China. If we just broke all the way up here at Kamchatka, we're going to go to the same distance over to the west. And that brings us up and around the bend of the plate, up into central China, east-northeast of Nepal. We have the Taklamakan Desert to the north. To the east, we have basically just central China. But if we go over and look what's in central China, the Himalayan range actually makes a bend in this brownish color here, around and through China, back over to the west. And we would look right here in the middle where both sets of rings are overlapping or right next to it. And we look for something up to 6.5. Same for over to the west. I would issue a warning for Pakistan, Afghanistan. Here's Pakistan on the south side and Afghanistan on the north side. I'd look right in between the two, right on the border. And this will also be in the 6.5 level. That's what's spreading out now. 6.5s are spreading out. How do I know? One already spread out. So one's going to be spreading over to China, and then one is going to be spreading further over to the west. The wave is going to be dropping off one along the way, each spot. That also means Europe. That also means Turkey and Greece. But like I said, I'm not issuing any warnings for Turkey and Greece until I figure out why the last one flopped. 10 days, expired today at noon, basically, or noon European time, whatever. And it's expired now, 10 days. And I'm not going to issue any new warnings until I figure out where the dang wave is. That's obviously still stuck there. There's small activity going across Europe, but back over to the east, 6.5s going all the way out up to Kamchatka. Stands to reason Central America and South America, in middle points between our current sets of quakes, we're going to see an increase by magnitude. That's not that big of a deal to go up to 5 or 5.3. However, 6.3 to 6.5 is due within the next 4 days here on the plate boundary at El Salvador and Guatemala. My previous warning still stands. I'm not canceling it. Right here where the two plate boundaries meet, mid-range 6 is due. I issued that warning for a mid-range 6 4 days ago. 3 days ago. 4 days ago. And now what do we have spreading out across the planet? 6.5s, mid-range 6s. They're warned for a mid-range 6. So if you know anybody down in Guatemala or El Salvador, this is Guatemala, this is El Salvador, this is over to the east. I don't think they would feel it. So I would only warn these two countries, maybe South Mexico as well. It's a small area in there, but, I mean, again, you can see it on the USGS plate boundary map. Was that Honduras or Belize over to the east? Honduras and Belize. Okay. Okay, anyway, you see the country names here. Okay, so we have Guatemala, El Salvador's on the south side, Honduras and Belize are over to the east, and the plate boundary kind of goes through all of them. And if a 6.5 hits on the plate boundary or anywhere close to it, they'll all feel it. So, if you know anybody in Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, or Honduras, let them know a mid-range 6 is incoming. Why is a mid-range 6 incoming? Because the rest of the plate is moving on a 6.5 basis. It's pretty simple. And then if you ask, why is the whole plate moving on a 6.5 basis, you go back and tell them, guys, there's deep earthquakes coming up from down below a world away over on the West Pacific, and it's pushing up on the underside of the plate. And the more it pushes up, the more the spread is bigger. The bigger the spread is, the more of a spread there is, and the bigger it is. Usually it is accompanied right before, by solar activity, sun activity, bombarding of the Earth with charged particles. That leads to new deep earthquakes. So if you want to know the full trace of the line going back what causes this all, we go back to the solar weather, the space weather that's bombarding Earth, that then perturbs the core of the Earth. Core of the Earth being plasma, not solid. Plasma electric, like lightning basically, but hotter and more concentrated and much bigger. Like a ball lightning, but huge. Rotating electrically in the core of the Earth. And that gets excited and fed electricity by the charged particles from the sun. The aurora, the glowing northern lights that we just had this week from the charged particles hitting Earth's ionosphere, that electrical air glow that's making the air glow so brightly goes down to ground. And ground is the core. But then, after that, all that power goes to ground, it comes back up with new deep earthquakes. Excitement, a very low frequency wave, like a beating of a bass drum deep down inside of Earth, basically, coming up through the plate. And then we get shallower, larger earthquakes. Then we see the spread. And so that's why we're warning for a 6.5 all the way over here at El Salvador, is because 6.5s are spreading already, and we're looking for this because the deep earthquake activity a world away. And you can trace this like a river, so you can watch it come your way, like a flooding river. Or spreading crack in a windshield, actually. It's almost like watching that. In this case, though, we already have cracks in the windshield, so we know which way it's going to spread. Now let's go into the United States. Alaska, Hawaii, lower 48. First of all, Alaska. Up here, we've got our warning going from Anchorage, south, all the way to the plate boundary, which is the bend in the plate. The number of earthquakes has started to increase. We call this a frequency increase. So the frequency, it's just like a beat of a drum. You go faster and faster, the rolling snare drum. And it's like a ramp of earthquakes that goes up into central Alaska. Now we go further up into Alaska. We're at the Selawik Hills, just east of volcanic feature. And now, today, we spread even further north by northwest. Northwest of the Selawik Hills. I don't even know what's up there. Have to go look. Let's go take a quick gander. Oh, wow. Hold on. Am I right about that? No, okay. It's the next peninsula up. Okay, up here. They don't have anything marked. Now, that's really interesting they don't have anything marked there because it looks just like the Selawik Hills down to the south. I'm wondering if there's other features that are here, which are here. And we need to look into those some other time. Anyway, there's no volcanic feature there. That's the edge of the plate. That's all I can see. And a few other things, but the edge of the plate. So we spread up to the edge of the plate to the northwest. All of Alaska is being inundated with 3.0 level activity. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, 3.0, but all of Alaska, going all the way across it, from northwest down all the way down to the southeast to the coast. And if we're at 2s, 1s in the middle, and we're spreading out to 3s on the perimeter, that means there's a wave arriving into Alaska. It's going into the plate right now, and it's spreading out somewhat equally from up here to the northwest, all the way down to the southeast. In a line across Alaska, that wave is incoming. Anyway, from Anchorage down south, 6.5 is due. Now going into Hawaii. Hawaii took a step up by 1 magnitude. We're at 4.0. Well, hold on. 3.7 and a 3.2. The 3.7 struck north of Captain Cook on the west side of Hawaii. It's somewhat rare to get earthquake activity on the western side of the Big Island. Normally it's on the east, central, and southeast side, or northwest side. So to get it on the west side is a little weird. Let's go see if there's anything worth mentioning there. Houses. Wonder if some of my viewers might even live in this area. Looks like we have old lava flows and an old spatter cone right here. Really, really old. Look at that. That's ancient. But are there any more? Going back up to the greater volcano. Yeah, okay, we've got more. We've got more spatter cones out here. These, again, I would call these ancient spatter cones, like a fissure that would open temporarily. Of course, we're on the side of Mauna Loa. Now, I brought this up in my last update. What happened to Mauna Loa? I mean, it just kind of died out. It was a huge flow. Not much mention of it after it went. Anyway, we're between Hualalai and Mauna Loa. We were previously up at the volcanic chain here, Hualalai. It goes down to the coast. And we have ancient spatter cones and fissures there as well. Go all the way down into the ocean. Anyway, I had to go check to see if there's anything there, and there are a few fissures nearby. I would just say this is related to something much, much greater. See the Hawaiian island chain? See where it goes? It goes back up to the west-northwest and makes a hard bend to the north and meets like an arrow up into Kamchatka. Up into Kamchatka. Let's do that. Let's follow the island chain back up to the north and go up to Kamchatka. And what is there? Our 6.5 increase. Again, we just had our big quake there. So we've gone up by a magnitude in Hawaii already. Went from 2s up to 3s, or basically up to 4. But now that you have a new incoming wave, we're going to take another step up. So that means what? 4.7? 4.9? 5.0? 5.0 is enough to cause damage. Okay, so that's when we start to actually tell the people in Hawaii, look out, there's an incoming 5 incoming very soon as the wave is coming down the Hawaiian island chain, which really connects to the undersea mount chain that connects to the whole Pacific. The Hawaiian island chain everybody knows about, but the chain that extends off of it, that goes down to the south and bends like a hard letter C crescent shape back over to South America, somehow everybody missed that. It's like the Mid-Atlantic Ridge for the Pacific. It cuts the whole Pacific in half. And everything east of this undersea mount chain of volcanoes has a equidistantly spaced fracture zone going to the east all the way to the north, where it makes a hard bend. Now, there's something about this shape here that it comes off, goes up, it's octagonal in shape. There's 8 sides to it that go up and across and meet to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge through Russia. But anyway, this thing transfers seismic flow down, around, and back up into South America. So if we're going to be seeing an increase in Hawaii, and we've already seen an increase up in Kamchatka, we need to follow this undersea mount chain down to the south, to the east, and follow it to where it dead ends into, you see it, right into South Peru. So Peru is also going to be seeing a noteworthy increase in the next few days. It's going to flow down and go up into Peru. Should see a new 6. I would think it's probably going to lose about a magnitude or a half magnitude off what's going from up there all the way to down here. And it's not that this 6.5 up here is causing a 6 down here in Peru. It's that both the 6.5 and the coming 6 down here in Peru are caused by a wave. And that wave is spreading out, dropping off the 6s along the way, which is also why I'm warning up here in Alaska. So it's going to be a round of 6s over the next several days going into next week. The next 7 to 10 days from now or yesterday, but, well, I mean, we're flipping over now. So from the 2nd all the way till the 10th or the 11th, I would watch for a noteworthy spread to go all the way around the planet. We should all be talking about earthquakes over the next 7 to 10 days as the spread takes place. Don't forget the X-class flare that just happened, Earth-directed but not that strong or not emitting a large charged particle burst. It is still heading towards Earth. Strong solar wind as well with the big coronal holes. That's all in the news, which is very rare to see. Normally they ignore that kind of stuff. The mainstream media, I mean. And so we're seeing that in the news, talking about 1.8 million mile per hour solar wind. That's 500 kilometers per second or so, I think. I don't know. I'll have to go do the math, but it's strong solar wind, but they make it sound like a lot by doing the million mile per hour thing when it's really measured in kilometers per second. Charged particles coming at Earth, that matters. That's what matters. So solar, it can be pretty. You can see northern lights, but when those northern lights convert to electricity and go down to the ground, that's when we start looking for the earthquake effect, and that just happened. Now look at the west coast of the United States. There's a stepping stone path of the same sized earthquakes going from up off the coast of Canada down to southern California. And they're all within a half magnitude of each other. 4.6 up here in Canada, 4.2 out off the coast of Oregon, 4.1 down in southern California. Now, really, this was a 4.7. This was a 4.8 down in southern California. And in the middle, I don't know what it was. I wasn't around to see it when it struck. But I can certainly tell you both earthquakes on either side were significantly larger, and they downgraded each to be significantly smaller. That matters because look at the rest of the earthquakes going down to the south. It's a stepping stone path of a 4, and then 4.6, 4.6, 4.6, and then another 4. Well, 4.3. It's all the same size quakes. It's a stepping stone path of the same size quakes. But 4.6 matters because 4.6 is striking everywhere else over the past several days, all the way along the plates, plural, around the planet. Not just here, but everywhere. And I'm not exaggerating. You can go back and watch my last video. We talked about 4.6s and 4.7s striking all over the planet, spreading out away from the deep earthquakes. Now here we are with the big quakes. United States, again, we look where the rings are overlapping for new outbreaks to take place. I have a warning going in Reno, Nevada, right here at the California-Nevada border. A few more days to go on that. 5.0 level activity incoming. I was going to warn the California coast, but instead I decided to warn Reno, thinking that the energy is going to be coming into the plate and heading over to Reno. It's on our doorstep, should be going there. We should also see a noteworthy seismic increase in southern Colorado, western Texas, and in Oklahoma. All three locations should see a noteworthy increase. And when I say noteworthy, I mean it. So we're going to go from, where are we, 2s? We're going to go from 2, well, to go up by 100-fold increase in power. We're going to go up to 4s. We're going to go up by 100-fold in power in Texas, Oklahoma, and Colorado. Southern Colorado, Trinidad, western Texas, over at the Panhandle, or I'm sorry, western Texas at the border with New Mexico. Panhandle's up here. So far west Texas, and then Oklahoma. East Coast, let's just go ahead and issue the warning for the East Coast too. Anybody live on the East Coast? You're due for a new upper 3 to low 4. You should feel it. And it's going to be striking between our previous sets of earthquakes. Let's see if those are still on here. There we go. Northern Virginia, Delaware. Let's see. Virginia, Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York area, right here in the middle. I'll just say Delaware, right along the coast. Maryland is there too. So Maryland, hold on. Maryland, Delaware, Northern Virginia, Southern New York, Eastern Pennsylvania. This little section right in here, in between our two earthquakes. So a rare East Coast earthquake is going to be rolling in the next several days. Should be in the 3 range, going to 4. Should almost match the 4s in the Midwest. This might take 7 to 10 days to take place. 7 days, I mean. 10 days for our large quakes, 7 days on the regular forecast. South America, already got that warning now going for Peru. I hope I'm wrong on all of it. I hope I'm under on all the magnitudes. Once we start dealing with large earthquake activity, we have to be on serious watch. For instance, if I'm warning China for a mid-range 6, if I'm wrong and it hits just over to the west, it's going to matter. In Nepal, where there's a bunch of small towns built on mountaintops. If I'm wrong on the magnitude, let's say it hits in China like I'm expecting, but it's way bigger. It's one thing if it's smaller, everybody can come over and beat me up. But if it's way bigger, it just sucks. Okay, what else? Oh, I didn't do New Zealand. New Zealand, you're going to be getting hit this week. Looks like you're due for a 6 down here on land, and the reason I'm warning you for a 6 is the same reason that we're warning Alaska, the same reason that we're warning Central America, and the same reason we're warning down here in South America. All are going to be hit. It's not like I'm going to say, oh, one hit, there we go. All these locations are going to be hit by this mid-range 6 level activity. We're taking a step up from where we were. We were at 6.3. Now we're at 7s and 6.5s, or 6.5s and 7s. So a 6 should creep down the plate boundary and strike between our current sets of earthquakes. Look what the USGS is showing us as hit in New Zealand over the last several days. Nothing. So I'm going to have to go check. Do I even have the feed? I guess I should ask. Do I have it? Am I missing it here? GeoNet, New Zealand, last 150. There we go. Let's apply and see if it still works. The dang feed. Have to check their feed because our agencies are leaving out all the earthquakes down in New Zealand. I wonder why. Looks like over the past few days, you've had a fair amount of activity. Let's turn down the rings. So the size of the earthquakes, small. 1s, 2s, and 3s. But the astute person should see that there's somewhat of a diagonal line of quakes that begins at the North Island right here in the middle of what we call the Catcher's Mitt in the Bay of Plenty, southeast of Auckland. Anyway, that's where the quakes really pick up, and they're deep. See how they're raised high off the globe? They're deeper. Then they come up through the plate, and as they come up through the North Island, down below it, they focus in on the plate boundary here, just south of Wellington, at Kaikoura on the north part of the South Island, and then go around and down to the south. Let me show it to you on the USGS map. New Zealand, that is. See the red line? Goes down, across. Okay, the seismic flow, the wave, goes down and across. So we find our spots between our current sets of earthquakes to find the middle of this hot mess. That puts us at North Island, east of Wellington, as far south as Kaikoura. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's the same spot over and over again for the last 12 years. Here we are. Cook Strait, Marlborough, south of Wellington. East, south by southeast of Wellington. So it looks like I'm going to be busy over the next several days. Like I said, I hope I'm wrong, but this is 2 large earthquakes in the past few hours. Again, a 7 and a 6.5. New Zealand agency has it at a 6.3. Interesting that they're even reporting that quake. Hold on one second. Okay, I apologize for that. I just sneezed. It's good to know that I can unplug that microphone pretty darn quick. I would have blown out your ears. 'Tis the season to be a sneezin'. All right, so that wraps up my update. Do you have an earthquake plan with all these 6s due? I almost forgot. Forgot one location. This location really matters, and it's for the largest earthquake of the week. How could I forget? Indonesia, Sumatra. See where the 2 sets of rings overlap? Well, they don't overlap, but what would you call the halfway point between this 4.9 and these 5s? If we go around this bend of the plate, it's Krakatau. So right between Sumatra and Java, there's likely going to be a large earthquake this week. 6.9, 7, 7.1, somewhere in the same range as what just struck here. It's going to be striking downstream. Think of this like a river, and it's going to be going over to the west.
it's going to be feeding those 6.5s going out over to Europe. So separate large earthquake warning, and then this one stands for 10 days because it's for a large quake. So we issue a new 10-day warning till the 12th for this, and 7-day warnings for the rest of the 6.5s around the planet. 7-day warnings for the United States, in case you aren't familiar with how we do the warnings, and 7-day warnings for Central and South America. I'm sure I'm forgetting some people. Sure I am, but we'll get another update out tomorrow. So, time for you to develop an emergency kit and an earthquake plan. And I'm serious about this. You need to do the emergency kit thing. You're going to need it. Sooner or later, you're going to need it for something. Whether it's a severe weather event, whether it's for an earthquake, a flood, a fire evacuation. You might even just use it to find things that you have put in there. Extra set of keys, an extra ID if you lose your keys. Food and water, clothing, flashlight, and batteries. What if the power goes out? Well, you got it in the emergency kit, has that covered. So will you please take the time to do it, though? You know, your life, I'm serious now. Listen, I'm not trying to be too serious, but your life and the people around you could depend on it. This is one of those things where it's like, you know, I have to do it. Yeah, you really should have a bag with stuff in it that will get you through in case a disaster hits of some kind. It's a no-brainer. Nobody can really argue with having the extra stuff that you need. Food and water is pretty important too, but the water you could probably meet with a pump or a filter or something like that so you don't have to lug around 8 pounds per gallon water or whatever it is. Certainly if it's in a thermos or a container, it's probably going to be 8 pounds a gallon. So the pump might be the best idea, but those are really expensive. They're not cheap. A good one. Anyway, please think about it. Will you finally do it, though, if you've been putting it off or you've been waiting? And will you please get a little extra food just to have it on stock at your house, too, if you can afford it? I know a lot of people aren't going to be able to afford it. But even canned goods. Might be time to stock up a little, guys. Have a plan. And most importantly, do not be scared. You need to be prepared. It's a cheesy rhyming sentence that I've said for, I think it probably goes back to Boy Scouts or something, but don't be scared. Be prepared. And being prepared means watching the earthquakes and paying attention to which way they're flowing. And there is a flow. It's like a river. That's my big discovery. One of my big. New 4.3, 4.5 has just struck in Turkey. To top it all off, Turkey has now just been hit again. In between all of our previous sets of earthquakes. Look at that. Literally sandwiched in the middle in between our two pink-colored earthquakes, the new white-colored earthquake just struck. Look at that. And it's the same size. Something's breaking there across Turkey from central north to central central to central south. I mean, it's currently breaking now. I mean, that's why the same sized earthquakes are breaking out across all of Turkey in the past couple hours. Something's breaking there now. That may lead to a larger quake in between all the fours. But that would be, I could go on for another hour on this. I will issue a separate warning for Turkey after I figure out where I got Greece wrong. Last time, 2 days later or 3 days later, Tajikistan got hit with the earthquake we were looking for. So I may just have to wait a couple days before I warn Turkey, but something's going on there now, obviously. 11:03 p.m. Central Time. I didn't look up any of the earthquakes in the United States. You're absolutely right. People are like, Dutch, you didn't look up any of the earthquakes in the United States. I don't always look up the earthquakes in the United States. We look up the earthquakes when there's something standing out as odd, or if there's swarms that are taking place that are new. The only thing I can tell you about the earthquakes here, again, that from yesterday to today, is there's a new addition over on the east side of the valley. The rest of the earthquake's going down across the San Andreas. Jumping over into the oil pumping operations, nothing's changed there. Nothing's changed along the California-Nevada border either, except for the lines of earthquakes are pointing down to the south like we would expect to the nuke test sites. But the new addition is over here in the east part of the valley, and I didn't look it up, but let's go put it in. Why not? God. Jeez, guys. You're making this drag on forever. I'm sorry. I look up the quakes normally, but I would, again, only look up quakes that would be interesting to us to add to the discussion. The only thing I would add to this discussion is this giant circular type feature that's here. You have to look from way, way up above to see it. Now, this is a bulge in the plate. I found this by earthquakes striking around the outside of it and fires breaking around the outside of this thing. Now, I think this is a bulging laccolith in the circular dome-like shape. A laccolith happens when magma intrudes down below, bunches up, and forms a circular or dome-like shape. We also have another one here. You could see the ripples in it that go back up to Shaver Lake up at the top. But they're side by side. The circular one, this one, and this one. Now, before you think I'm just paradealing or tripping or something, right across from here, we have Long Valley Caldera Supervolcano. So Long Valley's on one side, and the feeder for this giant laccolith, series of laccoliths. Now, I can show you similar features in Iran. Let me show you in Iran on the plate boundary there for the round and wavy shapes that we were just looking at. So, for instance, here, bulging laccoliths here along the coast of Iran on the plate boundary, and some of them have burst in the past, making these ripple-like formations that spread out. Here, this side shows it a little better. Here, you see this here. This goes back to a ruptured laccolith up on top that actually burst out of its contents. Now we're going to go back over to California, into the valley along the plate boundary here, and show you the same one over here at Shaver Lake. Here's the bulging big one, the round one, and same features going back up to the top. Okay, anyway, that's where our earthquake is. And the bulging laccolith is caused by magma. And same with the line of earthquakes going over here to the east, down to the east by southeast. Those are also being caused by the volcanic feature here. Long Valley Caldera going down to the east-southeast in a line of quakes going from the supervolcano down to this, which is Crater Mountain. And it's part of the Big Pine volcanic field there. That's where the other line of quakes goes. So laccolith being hit, line of quakes starting at the supervolcano, going down to Crater Mountain. The others across the border are going over to volcanoes as well, over at Monte Cristo Hills Volcanic Center. And like I said, down to the nuke test sites down here to the east by southeast. This might be a good place for me to wrap up this broadcast. You guys want to see the nuke test sites? Hey class, want to see nuke test sites getting hit with earthquakes? Don't worry, they're not doing nukes there now. There would be way bigger seismic detected, or no seismic detected. You know what I mean? So this is the surface test site where they did the famous surface tests that you saw in video, and they recreated it in the Indiana Jones movie. These are the underground sites here through this valley, going over to the west, over to here, all these sites, and over to the east is Area 51, right here. Area 51, nuke test sites, and we can even, I think, still turn on the Google Earth community and get the information on, just we can randomly click U.S. nuke operation Bowline Biggin. No way. Bowline Biggin. Well, less than 20 kilotons. That's not that big. U.S. nuke operation VAT, V-A-T, 1 kiloton, That's pretty small, too, in comparison to some of the others, like Operation Mississippi, with 115 kilotons. Or we go up into the megatons, so thousands of kilotons. Huge nuke test site there. That's where we go down to, and that's where all the quakes are. Man-made faults. So we go from volcanoes to man-made faults. What do they have in common? Well, the wave. The wave is passing through both the volcanoes and the man-made faults. And as the wave passes through, we start to see an excitement in earthquake activity. Speaking of an excitement in earthquake activity, Yellowstone started to swarm again. New 3.3 down at Tetons, new swarm at Yellowstone. 4.0 earthquake in Idaho, 3.6 downgrade, and Newberry Crater started to move down in central Oregon. We're moving on the subduction zone, small earthquake activity out there. Haven't checked the tremor map in ages, not going to. Tremor map is confirmed fake. Or manipulated, I'm sorry. Manipulated, cherry-picked, not accurate, always wrong. So I don't check the tremor map anymore. But I would think that there's probably tens of thousands of tremors taking place, which are not being reported here because they're not earthquakes. They're tremors. Up to the north we go, just really quick. I said I was going to stop, but guys, we're at Mount St. Helens and Mount Rainier again. I don't need to show those to you. What I do need to show you is over to the east. Let's go take a look over to the east and see what's there, shall we? Desert Air, Washington. Want to breathe in that clean, fresh desert air. Yes. Let's go see what's there. Is there anything clean and fresh there? Ooh. Well, look, kids. Desert air. I just said you want to breathe the clean air there. These are experimental nuclear reactors that have been broken down, and they took the radioactive contents out of them from the Manhattan Project and are storing them here at the Hanford Nuclear Waste Storage Facility and Processing Facility, where they had several big releases take place. And it's now a giant Superfund cleanup site for radiological materials where they're still storing them. Now down here to the east-southeast, this is the LIGO Gravity Wave Sensing Station. And they say that they're using the long lasers in these housings to measure gravity waves. But I found out something extremely interesting from watching a full presentation by Galen Winsor, Galen Winsor, Galen Winsor, called The Nuclear Scare Scam. And he talked about how there were discoveries made in the 1950s and 60s about using high-power lasers to do certain uranium processing for spent fuel processing. Dutch, they would never haul uranium down here into this building and bombard it with high-power lasers. They would never build high-power lasers next to a nuclear facility. They're using this to measure gravity waves from across the universe. I said I was going to be serious in my updates. That's how you say it seriously. So, my sarcasm aside, this thing's pointing at a right angle at the heaviest elements known to man, just so happens to be uranium, and they have two long lasers in the housing, but it's to detect vibrations of gravity waves, and it's just chance that it's pointed at a right angle at the heaviest elements on the periodic chart known to man. And you know what else is just chance? Is Gravity Hill right here. This place that's just so odd, but it's there. You guys can, welcome to come, where is it? Hold on. There it is. Gravity Hill. Another of the many places where gravity seems mixed up. Cars seem to inexplicably roll uphill. Now, Gravity Hill was here before the LIGO Gravity Wave Sensing Station was. And it's said that it's just a grading thing in the way the hill has been graded, and that your car appears to roll uphill if you go down gravity, or go up Gravity Hill by putting your car in neutral. It's just a grading thing, Dutch. Well, the LIGO gravity wave sensing station thing is just a gravity wave thing, Dutch. And the laser processing uranium thing, even though they discovered it, isn't being done there, Dutch. I'm speaking to myself in the third person. We got a problem. Time to sign off. Never mind the earthquakes and the fires that break around the outside edge of this place. Fires. Huge 50,000 acre fires. Multiple broke out around this place in particular after earthquakes broke out around it first. There I am talking about the quakes. There I am telling everybody about, hey, remember the fires that broke out here? Then the quakes hit, then the fires break out. It's happened, I think, 3 or 4 times in the last 6 years or 7 years that I noticed that this was happening. So, like twice a year? Or, well, no, not twice a year. Once a year for the last 6 years it's happened at non-fire seasons too. Oh, the interesting things that you find when you start looking up earthquakes. Do you know how to look up earthquakes? You click on them. You get the info. You grab the coordinates by copying them and pasting them in to good old Google Earth. And you need to download a copy of Google Earth Pro for free. Search Google Earth Pro free, and up will come the Google page, and you can start marking them. So just grabbing a quake here, for instance, and looking it up, where is it taking us? Let's turn off all the gobbledygook. There we are. We're going out here, right out into Nevada. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not Nevada, that's Utah. And what's out there in Utah? Zooming back in on the quake epicenter, a caldera. And the caldera, I think I've got it marked. Do I? I do not have it marked. Wow, no marked caldera. Wow. How do you know? How do I know it's a caldera? There's old lava flows that are coming off on the side. We have cones that are on the side, spatter cones and fissures. It's in the shape of one. It's not an impact crater, and it's surrounded by basins. There's another one down to the east by southeast. Let me see if I can find it. It's called the Valles Caldera, or is it up at Colorado? Anyway, there's several examples that I could show you of the different calderas. Here's another one. Here it is. The Zilitloy crater. The Zilitloy crater. Whatever. Okay. I'm just getting lost. Guys, we could do this all night. You know I love looking up earthquakes. So, it is my job. Let's get back to it. Let's get back to where this whole thing started. 2 large earthquakes hit. You need to be ready. You need to be prepared. Don't be scared. We've lingered on long enough. Let's save this as a video, get it saved, and put out over on YouTube. Iran just got hit. People are messaging me. Southern Iran started to move now. It's pretty obvious it's going across, right, guys? I mean, again, you can see this happen real time as you're watching. You'll start to see it spread. I might be asleep or might not be here, or today the internet was off, so hopefully you... internet off at my house. Hopefully you had your own copies of Earthquake 3D running so you could see what was going on. All right. Look out for this on YouTube as a premiere in just a little bit. I want to say one final thing. Everybody who has supported me on Twitch and on YouTube, thank you. Thank you. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to everyone who's paying for a subscription, everybody who's sharing my videos, everybody who's telling their friends and family. It's made a big difference. Huge difference. So I've noticed on my channel, we just passed, I think it was 1.1 billion minutes watched. 1.1 billion minutes watched. something like 150 million views or something. The YouTube live view counter is not working on on any channel. It's running behind and doesn't show you all the videos. So the view count on my channel isn't accurate. It's more like 150. But the view count doesn't matter. The minutes watched. My God, 1.1 billion minutes. How many years is that? Somebody in chat, do the math. Type it into chat once you figure it out. 1.1 billion minutes converted into years. And that's how many minutes people have listened to my voice talking through the internet. It's probably causing earthquakes in its own right. All right. We're done. Hopefully.